So I may not be perfect, but this is at least cheering me up, if nothing else. Anyway, I figured this was fitting, and I'll leave the more tech-happy stuff for another day. But this is from the latest issue of Library Resources and Technical Services, so we're at least up to current. Anyway, I'll make some side commentary as we go along, some of which may or may not have to do with the state of affairs that's upsetting me right now. But oh, and free shout out, we're all like, we finally moved to no longer having a split column formula for people who have to use screen readers and stuff. So kudos to you for that. Anyway, we're going to talk about supervisory technical services librarians. I technically wasn't one of those. I was gifted with something in my job description called functional supervision, but it blew up like a freaking grenade in my lap. So I'm just going to tell anyone out there who wants to listen, be careful with that. Because it was like, well, you supervise, but you don't actually supervise because you don't do, like, performance reviews and any of that. But you're supposed to, help them talk through, determine policies and procedures. But you have no teeth. I don't know. I got in a lot of trouble for encouraging people to do professional development. So there you are, doing good things, getting bit for doing good things, which is another reason why I get frustrated sometimes. But those are people that have mostly retired. Mostly. Anyway, many technical services librarians manage departments and supervise staff while trying to achieve the requirements of tenure. While this scenario is not unique, historically, technical services departments have been deprioritized over more public-facing departments, creating an added burden for tenure-track technical services librarians. This topic has only been minimally explored in professional literature. The present qualitative research study examines the ways in which the responsibilities of tenure-track technical services librarians who supervise staff impact the amount of time they can devote to the requirements of tenure, and utilizes focus groups to hear from both those who have been awarded tenure and those who are going through the process. Participants reported that they are experiencing both challenges and successes in the process, yet need more support. The results of this study may be of interest to both librarians navigating the tenure process and the colleagues and administrators who support it. Yeah, if anything, my really rough jaunt through functional supervision taught me I do not want to be in middle management. I've run my own business before, and I do find if I can, control things and not butt heads as much. Or I can be a good little worker bee and shut my mouth. Being somewhere in the middle just, for me, whatever reason, does not work out. Maybe it's the autism and the fact I see stuff black and white, and I get frustrated with others who, are like, look at the color. Anyway. Librarianship, scholarship, and service are typically the three areas in which academic librarians are evaluated in the tenure process. Successful achievement of these three criteria in and of themselves is challenging work, yet some librarians have the added responsibility of managing a department and supervising staff, or doing it covertly, because your boss is like, yeah, you guys run things fine. Supervision is an immensely time-intensive aspect of management, is generally not considered in the tenure process. Yeah, and I don't, again, you don't do the hiring and firing part of it, but Lord, do you do training documents, all sorts of other stuff. So I guess that part I was able to count. The increasingly complex work of technical services can make the development of expertise within this realm of librarianship challenging, but complexity is further compounded in libraries that continue to deprioritize technical services over public-facing departments. Yeah, we're the invisible hand, and so of course, nobody needs us. We can be replaced with the AI bots. Not. Anyway. As the situation becomes increasingly common, technical services librarians who supervise can be left struggling to figure out how to manage effectively and meet the requirements of tenure. So in February 2020, God hail the pandemic, authors met in the Carly Counts program, a continuing education library leadership immersion program that prepares librarians to make effective use of research findings on the impact of academic libraries on student success. The authors bonded over the recent transition to faculty librarianship after working many years as paraprofessional library staff. I'm glad you had someone to bond with that over, because it was really rough for me here. I had come up from library assistantships, and I grew up working class, and it was super hard to, make this transition, because the staff people I was working with, even though they weren't actually, under me, would not, socialize with me, or they'd, ask, they'd make plans with me, but they actually wouldn't. It was really weird. And so I got this vibe that, you should be hanging out with the librarians who, unfortunately, are, let's see, they're were just less fun than the staff people I was hanging out with. I felt more comfortable with the working class staff people than I did with the middle to upper middle class, or even rich in some cases, colleagues I was supposed to bond with. So I didn't really bond with them, and I really wish I had had somebody around that had like just come up that way, because that's another reason why I feel like sometimes I get pushed around a lot. It's like, well, you do tech stuff, you don't do real things like construction. Anyway, I'm glad you had someone. I am so glad you guys had someone. I did not. I had myself. I had myself in therapy. Alright. They discussed the challenges, found common understanding of their experiences as new tenure-track cataloging librarians with supervisory responsibilities. Both authors were challenged to observe other librarians within their institution who are facing the same difficulties, understaffing, feeling misunderstood, and struggling to find mentorship for guidance with priority scholarship and supervision. As part of the Carly Kent's program, they developed a research mindset and considered how others in similar institutions were addressing these challenges. A quick literature review revealed that not much had been written about their specific situation, which led them to investigate how other librarians in similar circumstances function. The authors began their investigation with the research question: in what ways do the responsibilities of tenure-track librarians who supervise staff impact the amount of time that they are able to devote to the requirements of tenure? What they found is that technical services librarians are attaining tenure but are often struggling to do so. Yeah, because you have no time to do research. You're too busy writing manuals and trying to explain your new library management system to people. Okay, so the lit review. So literature directly related to the author's research question is limited. In 2011, New Mexico State University librarians Liz Miller, head of general cataloging, and Dorothy Orms, head of government documents and maps, drew upon both personal experience and literature to address the issue of tenure-track supervisory librarians, albeit not specifically technical services librarians. They contend that the delicate task of managing personnel while meeting tenure requirements adds an extra layer to our workday and can present significant challenges. Yeah, no doubt. Orms and Miller suggest there is no one-size-fits-all experience for tenure-track supervising librarians. They offer general strategies to free up a supervisor's time, such as delegating work to staff, but most suggestions require work on the supervisor's part, such as training, documentation, and monitoring, aka quality control. So yeah, whatever time you save delegating it downwards, you make up for it in like having to develop the process and then having to realize things that, yeah, you develop processes and notes for your own head, and it's like, I don't want to train people sometimes. Anyway, that's why I decided not to run a department. Just too much stress. I want to be in charge, but I don't want the stress. Anyway. Notably, in 2011, when the work was published, academic libraries had not yet fully experienced the demand for advanced technological skills or the magnitude of staff reductions currently affecting many technical services departments. I would counter that. I think by 2011 we were, because I graduated in like 2009 from library school, and we were already dealing with a lot of this, so it wasn't as bad. There wasn't as much of this, like, the robot can do it, but it was starting. The problem of decreasing staff in academic technical services has been well documented in professional literature, and the resulting heavy burden and requirement for tenure-track academic librarians to assume new or additional responsibilities is illustrated by the NMSU library. Between 2003 and 2020, their technical services department was decreased by 54%, and both faculty and staff were assigned more responsibilities and shifted tasks to students' assistants while struggling with a general loss of institutional memory. Oh, I feel your pain. Let me tell you, we had everybody retire. Except me and one staff person who was about my age, who was mostly part-time until quite recently. So, yeah, no institutional memory. Just flying by the seat of our pants. And we don't have student assistants, so that must be nice too. I mean, we have one, but yeah. We could use more, and then everyone's like, how? You have to like train them to do the things inside the system. That takes a while. So we're back to, it'd be nice if you gave us union people. Alright. So, similarly, Jacksonville State technical services librarians are grappling with inconsistent opportunities plus increasing responsibilities. Unlike their faculty colleagues who teach, tenure-track librarians at Jacksonville are not given additional compensation to update skill sets and need to assume new responsibilities. Instead, they rely on uncompensated autodidactism to update both their skills and the skills of those they supervise to cover additional work without additional staff. And I should know what autodidact is, and I can see it in my book. Oh, words, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. But yeah, that's also just life. Like, you want to keep up. We're not giving additional compensation in our case, but you do it during your work day. That's my advice. If anybody gets fussed with you, you're like, dude, I gotta keep up. So in 2005, Janet Swanhill surveyed tenure-track technical services directors and librarians regarding status and success with the tenure process, although not specifically focused on supervisory tenure-track technical services librarians. Some of the responses included supervisory responsibilities. At least 35% of survey respondents agreed that despite a near equal success rate of achieving tenure, technical services librarians' path to tenure was more difficult. Yes, thank you. I'm sorry. I've only had like one other person behind me on the tenure track and reviewing their portfolio. And granted, I was like, we had to cut them off because of the pandemic, and I know everybody did. And at our point, it was kind of like, you can't keep extending their, untenuredness. What else do you want to see? And it's like, you have a point. On the other hand, I had to drop the rings from fire to get my tenure, and it's a little frustrating just seeing someone who, talks to people all day, which I know. I should appreciate people's talking skill set, because Lord knows that's not me. I can't talk to anyone. I am the mean person that nobody wants to work with. So, anyway, all right. Respondents cited reasons such as devaluation of management responsibilities and staff training responsibilities. Yeah, people think that's easy. It's not. Are not considered teaching on par with that of the teaching faculty. And again, I would argue to some degree it's more difficult. I mean, yeah, you're looking at buttons and stuff, but teaching people how to use your search interfaces is, equally difficult. I don't know. It's two different sides of the same coin. Beyond these few articles, not much has been published about tenure-track technical services librarians who supervise staff, yet the publications do offer a sense of this role's multifaceted challenges. So, with limited literature related to the specific situation, the author's review is expanded to include the challenges that technical services librarians generally face. When considered with the additional responsibilities of tenure and supervision, one can gain a clearer vision of what tenure-track supervisory responsibilities of tenure and supervision. Clear vision of what tenure-track supervisory technical services librarians face. Personal experience and professional literature reveal that technical services work is labor-intensive and has become increasingly complex in recent years, requiring librarians and staff to work with both print and electronic resources. Furthermore, librarians are trying to develop analytic skills amidst the strains of decreasing budgets and staff. That's why I got a business intelligence certificate, but I don't get to use it because politics. The complexity of this work is compounded by the loss of permanent staff who are considered experts in areas such as format-specific or foreign language material catalogers. Bukowski makes the case that hiring permanent staff to catalog these specific materials is not a cost-effective solution for some institutions. If an institution lacks the funds to hire temporary staff to catalog these materials, existing library staff must take on this labor-intensive, unfamiliar work, which in turn takes time away from regular responsibilities and can lead to mistakes that will impact patron discovery. This is supported by Karen Snow's study of quality cataloging in academic libraries. Participants in Snow's study, professional and non-professional academic library catalogers who perform original cataloging, indicated overwhelmingly that time is what is needed to produce quality cataloging. Without adequate skills or time, what appears to be an effective technical services or cataloging unit may actually be one that slides on quality. Yeah, that's the truth. The more product, less process. We'll get stuff on the shelves, but it's also garbage in, garbage out when it comes to your database and your description. And again, this is why I'm like, the robots are not going to conquer us all. At least not me. I will bring the water. All right. So we're here down by defining. So let me scroll down just so I can see a little better. All right. Defining effectiveness for a technical services department is not easy. A department may appear efficient if its ratio of items processed per FTE is high. However, the same department may have a backlog that delays timely processing of materials, aka our vinyl album collection back here, that maybe I'll just start cataloging that because that doesn't cause any trouble among my coworkers. They leave me alone. Specialty cataloging, things only I can do and nobody will fuss about. Another possibility is that a department may lower the cataloging quality by choosing to use minimal description, or MPLP, I just said it. Ignore regular maintenance activities. I think I mentioned in the other video, it's not doing authority control for a decade. Or exclude authority control. I'm sorry, I should have just kept reading. Yeah, that was us. That was us. Things are better. But again, I do a lot of maintenance work that nobody sees under the hood, so I'm kind of like, sometimes you guys push me to the point where I want to leave. I'm just like, I should just leave because y'all don't know what I do. And subsequently, you probably wouldn't care until things start breaking. I don't know. Every so often I consider faking my own demise just to see what would happen. But I haven't yet. I haven't fallen temptation. I have every so often been very tempted to just suddenly disappear on vacation into the woods. But Again, haven't fallen to it yet. When Orms and Miller's works was published in 2011, leaning more heavily on staff to assume additional work created by budget cuts, retirements, hiring freezes, and attrition may have seemed like a viable option. However, Davis suggests technical services work is becoming more complex and there is a gap between the skills held by current personnel and the skills needed for new and emerging technical services functions. Yes, trying to train people to be e-resources people is very difficult compared to print serials, which are much more hands-on. But when a library budget is tight, professional development and continuing education funds are often the first to be cut. I'll give us credit, we don't do that here. We have been keeping those, and I'm very happy about that. Thus resulting in the technical services supervisory librarian being responsible for either educating themselves or their staff to handle the additional work. The literature is abundant with evidence of staff assuming increasingly high-level tasks as technical services departments decrease in size. Ain't that the truth? Sometimes you get pushed back, especially in union environments. It's like, I gotta work with who's here. I wish I could have more people here, but I gotta work with the people that are in my offices. However, as discussed by staffing a workplace ethics working group of cataloging ethics steering committee, this model is questionable. Yeah, that's a diplomatic way of putting it. All right. So while technical services librarians are redistributing work and keeping staff skills up to date, they're also trying to maintain momentum toward tenure with scholarship and service. In some cases, workload percentages for scholarship and service requirements are small in relation to percentage for librarianship. These workload formulas should theoretically provide solid guidance and create time for scholarship and service. Hartnett, Arant Casper, and Van Dwinkerken, sorry if I ruined that, review 28 institutions' policy documents in their multi-institutional study of academic librarians and found the workload breakdown percentage average librarianship at just under 70%, followed by research at just over 10, and then at service at just over 10. However, despite these defined workload allocation formulas, the applied, service-oriented, and highly collaborative nature of librarianship can often blur the lines between these responsibilities while still being held to the same promotion and tenure standards as non-librarian teaching faculty. Okay, so our jobs are divvied up like that as a side comment, and one of the things that I'm pretty sure they still do this, but I won't know because I'm not tenure track, but when I was in tenure track, 5 or so years ago, one of the things we had to do year to year when they like ranked our 3 categories was you had to like try to designate which percentage of your time you had spent on what, and then they would multiply it by the average score your tenure committee gave you, and that would be like some form of weighting. So if you were like, I did a lot of, time doing research this year instead of doing service, and you adjusted your categories to like reflect that, but someone didn't value your research, or they did, and it got boosted up. It's a real like strange politicking game, and I always hated to do like that betting part, because I'm like, is this supposed to reflect my like actual time that I've spent doing stuff? Because in my early years I spent a lot more time doing service and professional development. And the last several years I've been spending a lot more time doing librarianship and not being able to do research because I've been taking on stuff. So anyway, I don't know if it's like that at anyone else's institution where you're like asked to like mark off a percentage of like which 3 categories, and then they like multiply scores somehow to get you a yes or a no if they're going to keep you next year. That was the other thing I kind of don't miss, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Cheese off enough people, they will drive you out whether you want to be driven out or not. Okay, so despite these defined workload allocation formulas, the applied, service-oriented, highly collaborative nature can blur the lines. Yes, we just said that, I'm sorry. Let me get scrolling here. In combination with the deprioritization of technical services, yep, once you're invisible, nobody cares, this can result in an allocation model that cannot realistically support librarianship at less than 100% and leaves new librarians struggling to be successful in a standard work week. Yeah, I was doing about 50 hours, but this is back when I was young, but I was trying to get a 2nd degree, which I'm glad I got. I can escape here whenever I feel like it. Yeah, it was rough. And now I'm just old and fat and don't want to move, so there you are. This can lead to librarians resorting to conducting scholarship on their own time, ding, 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 as found by Fox in 2006 survey of the Canadian Association of Research Libraries Librarians. In 2017, Hughes surveyed 115 librarians from across the United States who had transitioned to tenure-track positions, with 50% of respondents still working towards tenure. Hughes found 27% of respondents struggled to find scholarship opportunities, and 19% did not feel they obtained adequate support for scholarship. Amen. Nobody wants to fund research. It's like you just do service. You just do service and help people. It's not publish or perish. And it's like, what if I got into academia to do research? Some of us aren't staying in academia because we want to teach necessarily. Nothing against the students. I like them. They're fun. But I'm here because academia has the resources for me to actually do research that can actually, change society. Anyway, moving on. All right. So technical services librarians especially felt unsupported, citing a lack of understanding on the part of administration and time constraints, diminishing staff, difficulty finding scholarship opportunities related to cataloging, because again, everyone's like, the bot can do that, and administrative duties dominating their available time. All right, so trying to communicate our value. And other, And then the link breaks, and that's about the only time anyone realizes your value. But even then, it's kind of like, well, X has to talk to Y, and then Y has to talk to Z, and then Z has to go back to A. And like trying to explain to people how the internet actually works, everyone's like, you click link, magic happen. And it's like, there's like 18 hops between that. And yes, it's instantaneous now, but it wasn't always. And God, I'm sounding old. All right, we're going to keep moving. This may end up being an hour-long recording, but I don't care. I'm having a good time. In 2007, Janet Swan Hill found there are some tenure-track librarians who question whether technical services librarians should have tenure at all. I will go smack you. I wouldn't mind if it wasn't like an issue of them firing you at will and coming down and being like, so, I'm sick of you. It's the only reason why you want tenure, so they have to like at least come up with some cause. Like in my case, survey me and find all the mean things I say to people. All right. So, in her survey of technical services directors and librarians, she received responses indicating we explored excluding them, but didn't. It was the quality of the librarians then and not their jobs. Okay, that's kind of a personal remark. I found that some, not all librarians, also question the work we do as meeting tenure criteria. Yeah, and that's what's annoying, because it's like, you don't do consults, and you don't do this, and you don't do that. And it's like, do you know how complicated my job is in order to support, like, everyone else's ability to access stuff? And, well, that's just the ongoing, like, rant of IT people everywhere. Everything is smooth, nobody notices us, and that's totally fine, and the way we like it. And then once things break, everyone screams at us, but nobody respects us in the in-between time when it's, like, quiet. I'm like, hey, congratulations for not having things catch on fire during the semester. You don't get an award for that. You should, but you don't. Anyway. So, nevertheless, Hill found occurrences of exclusion appear to be uncommon, which is good. And, keep us in the faculty roster, even if we are cantankerous old people. Additionally, we suggest expressing a work or a profession of practice to those unfamiliar with behind-the-scenes library work can be challenging. Oh, yeah, let me try to explain to you what I do. Oh. This may make some technical services librarians feel as if they have to work harder to prove their merit. Not amongst ourselves, we get each other. Just hard being like, so this makes it do this, that makes it do this, but the vendor makes it do this, and you can change this kind of thing. And it's like, Anyway, books on the shelf, right? That's all we do, books on the shelf. More narrowly, Wolcott and Meniddy's research project in 2016 gathered information about the past, current, and future organizational structures of academic library cataloging units. Although the survey data revealed trends in cataloging staffing models at academic libraries of varying sizes and funding levels, including faculty status of cataloging librarians, it did not reveal the rate at which these positions have changed. Nevertheless, of the 410 respondents, faculty appointments were the most common, making up roughly 55.4% of the professional catalogers in the respondents' unit. However, 6.2% of respondents indicated a status of other in their survey for professional catalogers, leaving comments such as, we currently have none, or our faculty are tenure track, but we do not have any tenure track faculty on the cataloging team. Yeah, deprioritizing cataloging to just copy cataloging staff is not a good idea in my opinion. Further research of the historical rate of change in cataloger faculty status would be interesting. At the very least, catalog librarians should pay close attention to their institutional historical rate of change in cataloger faculty status and organizational structures. Yeah, I guess technically the cataloger still has faculty status, but that's only because it's been merged with the ERM job. Comments from participants in Wolcott and Meniddy's research remind us that catalog librarians are thought of as expendable and are commonly replaced with technology personnel, non-professional catalogers, or general staff. Yeah, good Mad Day people are important too. For department managers and supervisors, it is imperative to have staff with the right skills perform bibliographic or metadata work, especially since department managers and supervisors often are too far removed from the daily work and have too many diverse functions reporting to them. However, despite the redefinition of cataloger roles, positions such as digital initiative librarian, e-resource librarian, ding ding ding, or metadata librarian, ding ding ding, or the merge of the two, all included requirements involving some standard cataloging functions of a professional cataloger. Yes, we still need to describe things. Funny how that is. Unfortunately, it might be argued that all these discussions regarding whether or not technical services librarians should hold tenure position if our work is valued, or even more disheartening, if we are expendable, may have taken a toll on our self-esteem. Ain't that the truth? In 2017, Weng and Ackerman found that negative perceptions of technical services librarians are common. Yes, we're a cantankerous bunch. And that some technical services librarians feel their public services colleagues perceive them more negatively than they actually do. We're a sensitive lot. See, this does play into my issues I had today with my colleagues. We are sensitive, and we think you hate us because we think you hate us. You probably don't, but we think you do. Hug us, make us feel better. So this suggests the traditional negative image of technical services librarians is still widely perceived by both front of the house and back of the house librarians, but also that such a negative image is more strongly felt among the back of the house librarians themselves. So we are very self-hating. Okay, we need to work on our own self-confidence. A giant pile of introverts amongst the pile of introverts, and we all know we're weirdos. But this is where we like to hide, is in our technical services departments, where we accept the weirdos, and we're okay with each other. But we just need to, okay, so we need to stop projecting our own self-issues onto the front of the house staff. Okay, that's a fair read. That's a fair read, because, yeah, I feel like you don't understand me and you don't respect me. It's like, no, we respect you. We don't understand you, but we might respect you more than we think we do. The authors agree with Weng and Ackerman that what is best taken away from these findings is determining what can be done to diminish these negative perceptions. Yeah, I mean, it's reassuring to know that I'm not the only one who's got these weird thoughts. While we are faced with modernizing technical services with our limited staff and budget, we are also trying to supervise and support a staff that is increasingly being asked to assume additional, more complex work. With a limited body of professional literature, it's difficult to get a sense of how supervision responsibilities impact the multifaceted role of a tenure-track technical services librarian. Therefore, to better understand the unique challenges of these librarians, the authors wanted to hear from those librarians who are currently navigating the tenure process and those who successfully were awarded tenure while supervising staff. Alright, so research method. Author's goal was to generate information revealing how the responsibilities of tenure-track supervisors impact how much time they can devote to tenure requirements. They decided that focus groups that record stories of both tenure-track and tenured supervisors was the most effective means to gather data. The groups also enabled the authors to collect a large amount of qualitative data in a relatively short amount of time. Additionally, conducting focus groups allowed them to foster a safe environment for empathetic discussion to unfold. Focus group discussions can spark dialogue that may not occur during individual interviews because participants are influencing and being influenced by others. Yeah, you get us on a nice yeah. Sometimes it's good to vent. Sometimes it's nice to know there are other people in other places facing similar struggles. Because sometimes you feel alone when your technical services department is so small. The authors initially drafted focus group questions and asked colleagues at their respective institutions to review them for clarity and to ensure direct relation to their research question. They made minor revisions. The questions were similar but not identical, as the questions for the tenured group were modified to ask participants to reflect on what was going on when they were tenure track. The next step was apply for IRB approval, which was granted with focus groups conducted using Zoom. To respect and ensure everyone's privacy and anonymity, instructions were sent to all participants that detailed how to change their names in Zoom before entering an assigned focus group session. The authors made themselves available to address all participants' questions and concerns. Every participant's email was answered within 24 hours. Everyone received the research participation form that stated participants had the right to leave at any time during the session. 2 focus groups were conducted, one for tenure-track supervisors in December 2021, and the second for tenured supervisors in January 2022. The rationale for the group composition was that participants would speak more freely if they shared the same experience level. Kind of true. Kruger and Casey suggest avoiding power differentials among participants. Additionally, the authors were able to compare the data from the 2 groups for similarities and differences. The optimal number of participants to include in a focus group is between 5 and 9 with a maximum of 10 to 12. Virtual groups have been shown to have a higher cancellation, no-show, and attrition rates than face-to-face groups, with studies providing examples of online participants who are more likely to withdraw both prior to the start and during the session. With these variances in mind, the authors limited groups to 12 participants. By factoring in no-shows, the authors anticipated between 6 and 10 participants. To recruit, the authors compiled a list of technical services related electronic mailing lists, which they belonged to, lists that did not require a fee-based membership to post messages. In October 2021, a call for participants was sent to 10 lists, including Carly Tech Services, AutoCAD, OCLCCAD, ALMA-L, ALA Metadata Librarians, the Serials and Librarians Discussion Forums, ECNET, Association of College and Research Libraries, Medical Library Association, and the ALA Core Metadata Interest Group. Responses began to come in immediately. Within 5 days of posting, there were enough interested volunteers to fill both focus groups, as people seem excited for the chance to tell their stories. Oh God, yes, someone will listen to me. They'll anonymize what I'm saying, but they'll always listen. You should also throw a focus group together for the beleaguered spouses of people who've had to listen. A moderator is an essential ingredient for focus group success. The authors enlisted a colleague who was interested in their research and knowledgeable about the topic. The moderator guided the discussion, elicited more information when needed, and encouraged participation. Having a skillful moderator allowed the authors to focus on the conversation, taking everything that was being said without distractions, and kept the discussion moving, guiding it with the aim of collecting data relevant to the research question. All participants were encouraged to share their stories. 90 minutes were allotted for each group. Schedule was accomplished with a doodle poll. All but one participant were available on the day and time. As stated earlier, the literature prepared the authors to spec some no-shows, but they had 100% participation for the tenure track group. Yes, they need to talk. I've been there. A Google Doc was created in advance for participants to share thoughts or comments they had after attending the focus group. The benefits of using a Google Doc were also realized when the authors unexpectedly began running short of time for questions in the first focus group of tenure track supervisors. With this realization, they shared the Google Doc link in chat, giving those participants who had to leave an opportunity to still weigh in. While the first focus group exceeded the allotted time, participants were cooperative, and most wanted to continue beyond the 90 minutes. Yeah, they can very easily go to like 3 hours, because it's like, oh, good, yes, oh, it's like that over there. Let me tell you what it's like over here. Oh, good, I'm not the only one. You can probably host like a whole day symposium and get all sorts of exciting insider knowledge. So with this realization, they shared the Google Doc link in chat, giving those participants a way in. Okay, although the participants were cooperative. Yep, due to time constraints, the last 2 questions were assigned to the Google Doc for everyone. In the second focus group of tenured supervisors, participants were encouraged to contribute to the chat or use the microphones to save time and encourage people who prefer the use chat to contribute more to the discussion. Yes, some of us like me can type like super fast and hate waiting to try to like get a word in. But then I get accused of like, you're just hacking the chat. And I'm like, you know what? Some of us like work faster in the chat. And anyway, my millennial side, shall we? Zoom meetings were recorded with participants' knowledge, and transcripts were exported to TextMyth and Nomia's transcription software. The generated script was unedited while the authors listened to the recordings. Chat comments were as close as possible to time proximity, and when the transcript was complete, the names were anonymized to protect the identity. And then TagGet, a free and open source tool that helps researchers code qualitative data, was used to code them, and then questions and corresponding were divided into individual files. For each focus group uploaded to TagGet, they helped us create a code book using both deductive and inductive coding. Deductive coding uses a top-down approach by creating tags to identify themes they anticipated encountering. Inductive coding allows for tags to be created as unanticipated themes emerge. Yeah, I've done a lot more inductive coding. There you are, social science. The authors did a trial run with one focus group transcript. As this was a new experience, they reviewed the transcript several times before they were satisfied they had coded everything. Yeah, that's what you gotta do. Pain in the butt. Qualitative analysis. Additionally, they kept analytic memos for each question with anything in the transcript they found noteworthy. These analytic memos helped them identify patterns and emerging themes. They were also helpful for the analysis of each question. Berkowitz's questions for qualitative analysis guided the memo's content. Questions are what patterns and common themes emerge, and responses dealing with specific items. How do these patterns or lack thereof help to illuminate the broader study questions? And are there any deviations from these patterns? And if yes, are there any factors that might explain atypical responses? What interesting stories emerge from the responses? How do they help illuminate the broader study questions? Do any of these patterns or findings suggest additional data may need to be collected? Do any of the study questions need to be revised? Do any of the patterns that emerge corroborate the findings of any of the corresponding qualitative analyses that have been conducted? If not, what may explain the discrepancies? So after the trial round of coding was finished, the authors reviewed the code book to refine the results and discovered some codes could be combined while others needed to be subdivided. Blah, 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 blah. Advocacy could be all sorts of things. The authors also found that some of the tags they created during inductive coding meant the same thing, but they chose different terms. So they collaborated on the code book editing and then recoded the data, and then following the recoding, the trial round data was not used in the final analysis. So yeah, the joys of social science. After the authors coded the first transcript, they reviewed the codebook, made minor adjustments, coded the next set of scripts. When the authors had coded both transcripts, they compared the data, discussed, resolved any discrepancies in the coding. They also reviewed their analytic memos to ensure they were capturing the predominant themes in the coding and were not overlooking any important aspects of the conversation. When the coding was completed, the codebook was finalized. The authors created reports in tag it to identify what codes are most frequently used. They then explored the portions of the transcripts that had been coded with specific tags. All analytic memos were combined in one document that was indexed by group and question number. There's your methodology. Sorry, it went really fast, but methodology is kind of dull. So several themes. Codes or themes and frequency of use by tenured and untenured participants are documented in Table 1. So most frequently used code or theme was change management and reorganization. God, yes. It's nothing but change management. With 33 total, 16 tenured, 17 untenured. Administration supportive, yep, was used almost as frequently as administration unsupportive, with 28 and 29 respectively. And untenured responses were higher for both of these than the number of tenured. Staff inadequate received the fourth highest number of responses, with a total of 26, 5 tenured, 21 untenured. Yeah. Again, the untenured responses were higher. Yeah, significantly higher because the untenured people can see the writing on the wall. The day-to-day work code was next with 21 responses, 11 tenured, 10 untenured. I'm just skipping through the codes. Following themes received between 16 and 19. Multiple roles, planning, strategic vision, soft skills, research limited time, staff training, mentorship, tenure. 8 themes had between 10 and 13, workflows and documentation, tenure, professional development, in-depth progress, time famine, ooh, nice, bargaining agreements, staff retirement, supervision, mentorship, and tech services deprioritization. 11 themes had 6 to 9, frustration and discontent. Oh, I feel for you. Library school, staff satisfaction, faculty staff division, mentorship supervision, staff autonomy, professional development inadequate, camaraderie, advocacy department. Oh, we wish we had that. Quasi supervision, that's kind of what I was telling you with that functional supervision, and staff experienced. 7 themes received 5 total responses. Toxic, networking, research boundaries, staff adequate, supervision, administrative duties, supervision, crisis management, and advocacy staff. 3 themes had 4, nostalgia, persistence, and supervision, unexpected consequence. I'm guessing nostalgia is hanging on to old practices, or maybe it's coworkers being nostalgic for before you came. I don't know. 9 themes had 3 or fewer: administration, micromanagement, advocacy, self, crisis management, quality of life, supervision, transparency, putting out fires, micromanagement staff, staff inexperience, and tenure service. That doesn't tell us much in a big old chunk, but hey. So a review of the author's analytic memos confirmed what the numbers illustrated. The patterns and themes that emerged in their memos were the same as those obtained from their analysis of the tag data. So, this is the fun part. Discussion. Some of the biggest challenges for participants were change management and reorganization, inadequate staffing, serving in multiple roles, and staff training, all of which are interrelated to the common circumstance of technical service departments being asked to do more with less, because we're magic. These findings support the literature's discussion of tenure-track academic librarians who experience the challenges of decreasing staff as well as having to take on additional roles. One participant said, in addition to my duties, I have to help out with instruction, stay late during exam hours for the circulation desk, and help out public services because we are short-staffed, so that is also a hindrance. I understand. I just recently found out that apparently my coworkers who were doubling up on liaison roles got extra compensation. In my case, it was like, well, you weren't doing that much. The joys of being a single person with no kids. You do tend to get like overrun with stuff. It's like, well, you don't need that. You don't need money. You know, like you're somehow not worthy of being paid because you didn't reproduce. Anyway, I'm sorry. Maybe it's just my estrogen going off today. Maybe that's why I've been crying. Participants also expressed frustration with having to fight to fill open positions and with reorganizations being conducted without their input. I can say, yeah, 100 that vote, upvote that. Several reported administrators taking open positions and reassigning them to other areas of the library. Well, that sounds a little more familiar. Not here, but other places. Retirements and the resulting loss of institutional knowledge was also a common theme. Yep. We just ride. We just ride that horse. It's got 3 legs. We're riding it. No worries. These staffing shortages, loss of experienced staff, and reorgs, we have the supervisory technical services librarian with training challenges as well. Or you just go like me and you're like, nobody says I'm, you directly report to me, so I train yourselves. These experiences substantiate the research done by Stevens and demonstrate that there is a gap between current skills and emerging skills in tech services, as discussed by Davis. Additionally, the reorganizations and moving of positions away from technical service are evidence of the deprioritization of technical services, as discussed previously. Another facet to change management are working with people who are resistant to change. One participant expressed that every time something comes open, we're trying to reassess the workflows because that's literally the only opportunity we ever get to change something, because it seems like once that workflow is in place and you get those people in place, it can become very entrenched because of the way that culture is. Yeah, try to set it up perfect the first time. Not a lot of room for error. However, change is inevitable in technical services. I experienced a great deal in response to advantages in technology and budget constraints. Yeah, I've warned my my colleagues many times, like, you're going to be doing things over and over and over again just to please the machines, and we're already there with breaking apart fields to, make RDA more bibframe/link data friendly. So there you are. We're always going to be redoing stuff, even without changing, cataloging standards every decade or so. Alright, so additionally, as supported by the literature, the work is labor intensive and has become increasingly complex. The focus has shifted more to electronic, and print subscriptions have dwindled. We have migrated from legacy inherited library systems to new library services platforms, and our workflows have changed. This is what one participant noted. Technical services has changed through the years. It is focused on e-reserves and less on print, and so our cataloging areas try to adjust and accommodate that. I've also looked at using different tools to automate a lot of procedures, finding more efficient ways of doing things. Several participants described their work environments as toxic. Question number 1 asks, if you had 5 hours uninterrupted every week, what would you work on? One participant's unsettling response was, I actually come in at 5 a.m. every day in order to get my own work done, so I would like to be able to have a normal work day instead of an unreal work day all the time just because of all the workload I have to get done. That's just craziness. So for me, it would just be a quality of life, I think. Ooh. I feel you. When I was shuffling at the community college, it was quite a bit like that. To this, another participant responded, so I have to say no, why? That's the worst thing I've heard in a long time. I am so sorry that is your situation. While the first participant did not describe the work environment as toxic, a poor quality of life and extraordinarily long workday were described because of the expected workload. The authors acknowledged that although this is only one person's experience, it is not a sustainable scenario for anyone. And it's not just one person's experience. It's very few of us actually speak up, because it's like, we get these fun vibes of like, you should be happy you have a job, and I'm just like, a labor is a contract. Those of you who are more progressive than I am should know this. For some, a toxic environment was due to a divide between faculty and staff and the lack of effort from administration to alleviate tension to create a more favorable work environment. Yeah, previous dean, that was pretty true. Now it's not so much, but I think that's also because at least on the technical services side, we've unfortunately hired staff that have their MLS, which I don't agree with. I think they should be paying them actual librarian salaries. But they applied for staff positions and they are working with us. So I think that is actually less of an issue now than it was before, because before it was I got a lot of feedback from the previous staff that was like, well, I did this and so-and-so got mad at me. So-and-so slapped my hand, as they would put it, and I'd be like, just do it. I'm very laissez-faire. I would rather you break stuff and we learn something. Like, sometimes I get titchy, but I will get over it, But yeah, now I feel like I'm working with people who have MLSs, and they're like, nah, we're equal in terms of knowledge to you, and we can figure things out. So that's a little less of an issue. Although we do bump into things where it's like, the librarians won't tell us what they're doing about X. Are you ever guys going to make a decision? So we do have that still. So yeah, one participant said the administrators have not done anything to smooth over the relationships. In fact, the administrator that's in the interim has just made it worse. No comment. Some participants bore the brunt of staff resentment. New faculty that come in are just going to be like walking punching bags for long-standing resentment. Well, they wouldn't be if, in my case, they didn't come in and start stirring up things and being like, I want your job, I want this part of your job, and that part of your job, and that part of your job. I just got here and I barely had a library school, but I want to do all this. Another common theme was not having a voice in decisions that are being made about the departments and the people they supervise. Yeah, or you have a voice, no one listens. Here's what one of our participants reported about people she supervised who were working from home during the pandemic. I was not included in the selection process or even asked, hey, can this person work from home? When referring to open positions and reorgs, another participant commented, basically my administrator swooped in and said, here's what's wrong with your unit. You have someone retiring and I think you don't need to fill that position. A third participant described filling an open position this way. It was reworked into another place in the library without discussion with me. Yep, I feel for you. In response to how she has to fight for her people in positions, a fourth participant said she is fierce and persistent when it comes to defending her people. Yeah, the problem is when you're fierce and persistent, it doesn't win you a lot of love, sometimes from your colleagues. It's kind of like, I'm going to defend my people, and that's like, your people don't need to be here. We can do it all with the Google. Additionally, respondents discussed how so much time is spent resolving situations that arise in the moment. Yeah, so many things you don't realize until they happen. One person stated it's like putting out one fire and on to the next instead of being able to lead their departments with vision. Many respondents find themselves in a reactive mode in which they continually respond to problems. Yeah, I have ideas of things we should be doing, and I would like to, if I was actually in charge, we would be doing crazy things like stand-up meetings, like in the morning for 5 minutes. I would actually be a boss, because I have been a boss in my own company before. So, yeah, it's doable. But I'm not allowed to force anyone to do anything, and that was very heavily drilled through my head when my whole functional supervision thing blew up in my lap. So, nope, not in charge of anyone. Barely in charge of myself. So, yeah, many respondents felt the challenge the ability to complete their daily responsibilities and prevent them from making time for research and large-scale projects. The management responsibilities of running departments, supervising staff do add an additional layer of responsibility, making the path to tenure more difficult, as reported by ORMS. Despite the challenges participants faced on their road to tenure as supervisors and department managers, they had strategies for success. Participants spoke of embracing autonomy in their leadership roles, cross-training staff, again, I have unions, and receiving support from their tenure committees. Yeah, I wish I could say the same. Additionally, two prominent themes that emerged were administrative support and mentorship. Both groups included participants that indicated these two themes were either vital to their success or the lack of them was a hindrance. And some participants also shared their experiences with successful advocacy. Yeah, and I would say if you don't have people backing you, you may end up with high turnover in your tech services department, investigate that, because generally speaking, we don't want to stick around places where we're even more disliked than normal. I don't know. Responses in the author's data about supportive administration versus unsupportive administration were about equal, so for the purpose of this research project, administration is defined as one direct supervisor and others higher up the chain of command. Participants reported that administration provides support in a variety of ways. They encourage tenure-track librarians to take research time during the work week and ensure they have a clear roadmap of what is needed to attain tenure. Oh, I'm so glad. In a study done by Hugh, 62% of participants felt they were successful, in part due to the support they received for scholarship. I did have a lot of good support for scholarship, however, I did not have a good understanding of what the heck and how my job aligned with the normal tenure portfolio, even among the public services folks. So it was tough. So, they are practicing shared governance, transparency, and ensuring that faculty tenure and promotion committee does its job by preparing untenured faculty to go up for tenure. What a concept. They ensure their direct reports receive leadership training that will enable them to continue to grow their supervisory skill sets. They're making sure departments are adequately staffed. They listen when it is necessary to revise job descriptions. They're reorganizing departmentally to lessen the burden placed on supervisors. They are taking time to understand what their direct reports do. Now that's a concept. That was one of the things that always drove me nuts. I went to grad school at U of M, and they're like, well, you'll supervise the people that do that. And I'm like, I need to know what people do from the ground up. Like, again, I ran my own business before I was in here. Like, anyway, whatever. Whatever, the INTJ knows too many things and has opinions and thinks she knows it all. Like everyone else. Okay. They're taking time to understand what the direct reports do. Yes. And that was one of the things, like, I've always emphasized to the staff, like, you're the one that's directly interacting with the thing, so I'm more likely to take your opinion than, actually investigate and take my own. Because I assume what you're doing for good reasons, I know, it's a weird idea that you delegate and, assume positive intent and people are doing things for good reason. As opposed to, I need something to put on my resume before I go somewhere else. The joys of being a stepping stone college. We just bend over backwards, people come, and then we flip over and clean up the mess. Good times. Alright, so, Mentors. One participant noted the following about feeling supported. About a year and a half ago, I was able to work with our dean and our cataloger to take her position from cataloging associate to a managerial professional position because she just has all the skill sets to do really good cataloging more. And so that kind of support for the staff was really important. Another participant not realized how supportive he actually was until hearing of the other participants' experiences. Yes, do you want to hear our war stories? Let me tell you. This is the time of year when we have innumerable presentations from HR and from the faculty committee talking about what it takes to fulfill the requirements of annual review and what needs to go into the various documents and how to just process-wise submit the documents. And I've always found these relatively tedious and boring and like the cost of doing business, but hearing people talk about like just not having that information, it's great support actually. And I did not think I realized how good it was. And I guess how lucky I am to have that level of support from the library administration. Yeah, having people clearly explain things, because ours was very much like, well, you know, this part maps to your job description, and do some research, and find some service that maps to what you do. You know. And then you got, like, annual feedback on what you're, in my case, doing wrong. I'm sure there was positive stuff in there, but maybe one of these days I'll read you my appointment letters, and you'll see the drama for yourselves. So this participant also revealed how administrative support can be inconspicuous. When his colleagues said he felt unsupported in their scholarship endeavors, they developed their own informal peer mentoring program. The fact we were able to have these discussions and organize programs and do peer mentoring meant that we were actually, I think, quite supported. We had the time and flexibility within our working schedule, and so I think that's another really good structure and level of support, I think, from library administration. Yeah, and this is like another thing I butt heads with my colleagues, because I would love to do some damn programming, but like, I can't get anyone to work with me. Like, I'm apparently, you know, the female version of Satan incarnate. And so it's like, do I just go directly, because we have no middle layer at the moment, to a dean and be like, this is what I'd like to do? Why haven't you talked to your coworkers? Because none of them want to work with me on anything. How do you know? Because I keep trying, and they keep telling me that they're the ones that know things. Anyway, I'm sorry. I was side ranting today, but that's fine. Nobody's going to watch this anyway, I bet. Nevertheless, as some of the focus group participants expressed, there's still room for improvement regarding administrative support. A 2020 mixed method study published in the Journal of Library Administration found administration to be one of the top 5 reasons academic librarians choose to leave their jobs. I believe that. Because eventually you just get to a point where you're like, to heck with this nonsense. I'll just go back and be a corporate. I mean, granted, there's deadlines and they're, you know, less flexible on other things, but there's just times where it's just like, I am done fighting over the smallest things. Because it's your boss and your coworkers that really, in my opinion, determine whether or not you stay at a place. Like, money is very important in my opinion, but there's a money to bullshit ratio, let's put it that way. So, yeah, administration, participant, open-ended responses side, poor leadership, micromanaging. Oh, had that boss. Fortunately, she's gone. Biased or unethical behavior. Let me tell you about that. And lack of employee support. Well, we don't have that problem. We have decent leadership. We just don't have leadership that's willing to, correct people. Willing to sort of endorse people and their bad behavior sometimes. 2006, Luzius and Art also cited unhappiness with administration as one of the top reasons librarians left the field entirely. Yes, please, administration, you're put there because theoretically you have people skills. Please, if you have people skills, deploy them. Thank you. Because one of the things my boss was like, I'm a guy that's got a degree in human development. Well, then please, deploy the people skills. For those who choose to stay, a 2021 study reported lack of support leads to higher occupational stress levels more frequently than stressful events. Truth. As the authors point out, this finding is encouraging as it promotes achievable change, such as support from administration or mentorship from a more experienced colleague. I don't know if mentorship would help unless, I don't know, can we start like some sort of group? We used to call it group gripe, where we just all get on a party line together, like a Zoom once a month. Just rant and rant and rant until we're all ranted out. The airing of grievances. Focus group participants know they felt more successful and provide mentorship with both supervision duties and getting started with scholarships. Some of these mentoring relationships are formal pairings provided through official university or library level programs. And participants also express satisfaction with informal mentorship. Participants describe mentorship as co-authorship on a research paper, or it could also include a colleague just helping get through red tape and stay on track. Participants asserted that without mentorship, they might be given no direction on what your portfolio should look like. I've helped people do that, even though they don't help me back. Mentorship for new colleagues can ensure they do not feel the need to just latch on to somebody and hope they are willing to take you along on the ride. Really? Because I've noticed a lot of my new colleagues just, bond with the clique and then they're all good. But if they end up like me on the outside of the clique, then it's sad, sad times. What is not helpful is the sentiment, I have tenure and I struggle, so you need to get through your own struggle. Yeah, well, anyway. When people give you hoops of fire, you are tempted to give the next person hoops of fire, and then we get into the, oh, you're going to screw the next guy because you don't approve of auto-promotion days. I think we should hold our standards because, gosh darn it, society is crumbling as is. So, yeah. Mentorship can include scenarios like investigating cross-departmental collaboration that would help colleagues who might be the sole technical services, a librarian in the library, but nobody cares about them. Nobody cares about them. We'll just struggle. Successful mentorship also means recognizing colleagues might be isolated. Ding, ding, ding. As a result of the deprioritization of technical services departments, a library may have several public service librarians, but only one technical services person. One librarian indicated, I moved into a tenure track position, no idea what to do, and I'm the only cataloger. I would have loved to have some sort of mentorship or collegial support in terms of, writing. We have a bunch of reference librarians who co-author papers all the time, and I didn't have the opportunity. I really wish I could have somehow been connected with somebody to get me started on that process. Yeah, that's the downside, because it's none of them ever consider that you have any interest whatsoever in teaching or want to collaborate or are working at all the AI thing. I'm working on machine learning projects, but we can't talk about it because I'm not part of the clique. I'm not part of that group, so therefore I'm not important. Fortunately for me, I'd already been published, so that wasn't much of an issue. I'm I already know how to do that. Just get out of my way. What participants expressed regarding mentorship is not new. As early as 2007, Hill pointed out that mentoring is not specific to technical services librarians, but given that they tend to be few in number in any given library, it may be argued they have greater need of positive mentoring than public services colleagues. Hill also suggests that mentorship can serve to expand knowledge and interest in the work of technical services. Survey results published in 2018 cite mentorship as crucial for scholarship success for librarians pursuing tenure and suggested that insufficient mentoring hampers scholarship progress. Goodstead and Walsh found that formal mentoring programs provide increased understanding of institutional culture and improved communication and time management skills, all of which are crucial for librarians pursuing tenure. Nevertheless, Sasson and Wall found that despite 72.9% of academic library deans and directors indicating that they support formal mentoring programs to encourage research and publishing activities, only 52.1% had a formal program in place. Yeah, I believe that. In addition to seeking administrative support and mentorship, technical services librarians must advocate for themselves. Yeah, double-edged sword there. Double-edged sword. I think that's why we get the reputation of being cantankerous, though, is because we're constantly having to advocate for ourselves and everyone doesn't understand why. So maybe that's it. According to some of the tenured participants, if administration does not ask about technical services, our role is to inform them of the importance of our work to students and faculty. Furthermore, one must advocate not just for one's department, but also one's time. This is what some participants said about self-advocacy. I think we need to not forget to be advocates for our own needs in all areas. I think maybe that the help is there, but we just have to kind of find it and ask for it. I think advocacy, not only for your department, but also for your time is really, really important. And I started to learn that after a couple of years. That's when I started blocking out time for research. I saw myself as an advocate for my department and my staff, but I had to start seeing myself as an advocate for myself as well as my time. And once I started doing that, I feel like I was able to get resources and support I needed instead of just waiting for my supervisor to hand it to me. I'll give you that. I've never been scared to ask for stuff, though. That's a joy growing up poor. You just are I'll ask for anything. But I'll irritate people because I ask too much, and they're why are you? Why are you? Okay, I don't know why I'm getting texts from the Catholics. Don't know how I got on that text chain. Otherwise, participants practice advocating for themselves and their departments, include documentation. But again, we're back to we need to write things, and therefore we need time to write things. And people don't consider technical documentation necessarily the same as publishing, even though it's much more difficult in some respects. One participant had a prepared white paper that articulated what was needed to keep her department operational. Participants also suggested when a position becomes open, consider whether it's still needed or if the position can be repurposed to meet more pressing demands. Yes, it can usually be repurposed, but don't take it the hell out of my department. One librarian chose not to refill a serials check-in to get more resources for your electronics librarian. Yeah, makes sense. And as one librarian articulated, if there is a risk of losing a needed position despite how difficult or challenging it can be to get high-level administrators to grasp the importance of your work, do not stop trying to help them understand. It is plain it's not just the title, it's all the other things that person did because all of us are wearing many different hats. I've tried and I've tried and I've tried and it's, yeah. Good luck out there, folks. Maybe I'm just feeling a little beat down. We haven't even started our semester, so just week back. Yes, last week was moving, this week is, yeah, times. Anyway, the author's interest in the subject is personal and stems from first-hand experience as tenure-track technical services librarians supervising departments have been deprioritized. According to fiscal year data since 2018, both Southern Illinois University Carbondale and R1 University with FT of 9,000, and Southern Illinois University Edwardsville, a doctoral professional university with an FT of 10,000, have seen their technical services faculty remain static, hovering between 2 and 4, with SIUE currently operating with 2 full-time technical services faculty and SIUC with 3. However, at both institutions, public service faculty have outnumbered technical services faculty by at least half since 2018, with SIUE seeing its public service faculty increase by more than 60%. Yes, yes, yes. It is very annoying and be like, dude, we have jobs that are very important in order to support your job. And I've never understood like how people can like teach how to use a discovery layer when you don't know how things are built. But that's also just me, admittedly. Alright, SIUC has been fortunate to keep their technical services staff at a consistent level. This trend is also seen with SIUE. Since 2016, technical services staff has decreased by more than 60, while public service staff has only decreased by 20. SIUC has been fortunate to keep their technical services staff at a consistent level. Barely in our case, we've lost at least one faculty that hasn't come back. Implications of deprioritizing technical services faculty and staff could become increasingly prominent as discovery system technology continues to become more advanced and increasingly utilizes new marked fields and terminology. Limited, missing, and poor quality metadata and bibliographic records, especially as seen in older records that do not utilize these new fields, could have a negative impact on discovery and access. But then you're back to, you've laid the people off, and can you sell your dean on upgrading your metadata? If you're at a bigger university where I'm at, you probably can. Mine is just like, they can find enough stuff. It's all just satisficing, right? Nevertheless, the deprioritization of technical services is only part of the problem. Tenure-track technical services librarians with supervisory responsibilities need support, and the focus group expressed the sentiment that they would feel more successful with support and mentorship from their administration. A few participants have successfully advocated for their department, their staff, and themselves. Others are consumed with being unable to move beyond putting out the daily fires. Which is fair. A lot of things catch on fire. That was my day yesterday, and all the things breaking. The reality is that administration is failing us by not taking the time to see how our work is changing and becoming more complex, or ensuring that there is mentorship to help us succeed with both scholarship and supervision. If replacing faculty and staff is not an option, administrators need to be aware of librarians who are flying solo, ding ding ding, and feeling isolated and offer them support. They should also ensure the librarians are involved in reorganizing departments or work, and furthermore, this theme of technical services librarians feeling misunderstood and undervalued by administration is an area that should be explored further. Maybe I should do a survey on that. Do you feel depressed? Does your life not have meaning because nobody understands what you do? Alright, I was going to do more on this, but we're already at an hour, so I'm just going to wade really quickly through the focus questions. How many years have you been a supervisor? In my case, it sort of depends how you define supervisor. How many direct reports you have? Technically none. If you had 5 hours uninterrupted every week, what would you work on? Would I work on anything, or would I take a nap? I'm sorry, I'm terrible at naps. I actually would work on building CatBot. Yeah. Or I would work on the other AI idea I have. I'm not going to share with you. What support do you get from the supervisor or library administration? What support would you like to get? So I'm not a direct supervisor, and I don't even know what support I'd like to get. I've been shooting from the hip for so long that I'm just kind of like accustomed to it. It's kind of like my colleagues on the public services side were like, we've never had a dean before. You know, years ago we hired someone for their side, and we're used to running things ourselves. And, you know, that may be good, that may be bad, but that is how it will work. You've had positions that became vacant. How have you handled the work assigned to positions? We shift the work and we try to find things to not do, but that's very hard. So yeah, we just shift the work, and I just sit here going, let's watch it burn. Stuff's got to break at some point, because administration is not going to give a damn until something breaks, and breaks hard, which sucks, because I don't want things to break, but sometimes you gotta let the tire fire ignite, just so people can see it. Anyway. What is your approach to supervision? How do you define success as a supervisor? I have no formal approach anymore. I used to have an approach, and if I was totally in charge of a department and could actually like set the tone of the day, I would have an approach. I don't though, and I can't. I'm just, getting through the day, just like the rest of us. Do you feel your administrative duties impact your participation in librarianship, service, or scholarship? Mostly the scholarship. Although, okay. Side note, dealing with supervising responsibilities has made me actually extremely less confident in my ability to be a leader. So that is like a massive impact on my service, because I don't step forward anymore. Like, my coworkers have got me to the point of, like, I second guess myself on everything, even in like committees where I get the sense that they're like, you should be leading this, and I'm just like, not gonna do it, because I'm not good at people things, and I'm tired of people not liking me, and I'm tired of all these negative vibes I get. So I'm just over here. You just poke me when you want something fixed, So that's pretty much like how my supervisory duties have like negatively impacted. Like, I don't step forward for leadership positions anymore. I was a Girl Scout. I used to want to lead things. Now I'm just like, I'll carry on in my own little independent corner. Where are you in the process? I'm blessedly got tenured right before the pandemic hit. Yeah. Thank Jesus. Praise Jesus. Oh God. You foresee future situations may have an impact. Yeah, if we get another lockdown. Oh Lord, please no. What question did we not ask that we should have? I can't think of anything that was most important. Oh, okay. So here's the tenured ones. So, who went to librarianship wanting to be a supervisor? I actually did want to be in charge of an archive once upon a time, before, things happened. It led me to realize I have no people skills, apparently. Did you supervise the entire time you were pre-tenure? Again, I think I talked about this a little bit. What is the greatest number of direct reports you had at any one time? Well, still technically 0. Functional supervision of like 4 or 5 people. What the day have looked if you did not supervise? Good question. Because again, a lot of it wasn't really supervision. It's more like working with others. Yeah, and I talked about that and what support. I wish we had support. Again, I turned my boss against me due to an incident, so that didn't help. We shifted. Okay, so they're basically just slight variations on the 2 questions. Anyway, thank you for sitting with me for an hour and at least listening to my supportive comments. Miss Howell and Busch, because I feel ya right here, and I was tempted to volunteer for your focus group, but yeah, you quickly found people, because a lot of us want to talk, and generally we just try to keep sweet and make things work, and the patrons, the students, that's what it's all about. But there's a lot of weird stuff going on underneath the surface in technical services these days, so I'm glad we're at least trying to bring it to the